go for it. Don't think about what comes after or what came before. You just gotta bend your knees, take a deep breath, and jump. And you might think, what if I fall? Well, what if you don't? What if you fly?
This is for the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, you ain't gonna touch me, you not gonna do nothing, you are not above me, I bet you wish you was me, I know it, I know. For the nerds, this is for the brainiacs, this what we deserve. Go ahead and play it back, I know it, I know.
All right, everyone, we are live for the S4Y VLOGCAST, and today is a very special day, Matt Berkey.
Tell me more.
My esteemed co-host. I'm excited for today, man. We have so many things going. There's just so much going on, man. Like today I saw you were like ready for the day. You were ready to conquer the day. Mm-hmm. You were in the sauna. You were like, oh, going in for like a deep water plunge cold ice bucket challenge.
Our pool.
You remember the ice bucket
pool
challenge or no?
Yeah.
You did it?
No.
You should have done it.
No.
You were too soft.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a pretty lit day today. We have Daniel Negreanu on the podcast, vlogcast, Twitch stream, everywhere. They're everywhere. Twitter, like it's live. It's like literally like my little sister's watching on her iPad. Like it's crazy right now. I don't know if she's watching on YouTube. I don't know if she's watching on Twitch. I don't know if she's watching on Twitter. I don't know if she's going to watch this back on, Apple Podcasts or Spotify or whatever it is. But I appreciate all of you that are watching on all the different platforms. What's up, man?
Yeah, big time. We hit all the majors today.
Yeah, Google's hitting me up. They're like, yo, listen, we need exclusive. We can't be having all this like Twitter and other stuff. Like, it stays here on YouTube. And I was like, I don't know, man. Cut the check. And they were like, all right, we got to talk to some people. And I was like,
why don't we talk about the real elephant in the room?
What?
Where's your hair?
Cut it off, man. I'm locked in.
You're locked in.
I'm locked in.
To a shaved head.
I'm not growing my hair back until I lose some weight. That's how it is. That's how we're doing it.
Tell me more.
That's how it is. I need some more.
No, I need to know more.
Why?
I need to know why you're bald currently.
I'm locked in.
What does that have to do with hair?
Some things like trigger you. You know what I'm saying? Mm. You're locked in. When you're locked in, you just.
How much do we pay?
You put the hoodie at 5,000, obviously.
All right. How do the mamacitas feel about the bald head?
They love it, bro. They're like, you look so manly. I'm like, word.
You think I don't know?
What do you mean?
You think I don't know?
Oh, because that's the text you get. I get you, man. I see how it is. I'm shooting from everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. All right. So new you, shaved head.
And it's not shaved. It's just like kind of.
You're giving me accountability free rolls if you don't walk every day, if you don't hit the sauna every day, gym.
Listen, if y'all want free rolls, you got to create your own accountability too, right? So it's like if you miss anything of your routine, bang, you get punished, $100.
In Bitcoin.
And if you get excuses, $200.
In Bitcoin.
In whatever form you want.
No, I want it in Bitcoin.
I'll fucking give you Google shares. They already talked to me today. Google shares. You don't want Google shares?
No, I do. I do.
Nice. But a lot of things on the docket today. GG main event champion, not USA version, because I guess we're like a different thing. We're like Texas. We don't even want to be part of nothing. Right? Crowned. My man, Damian Salas. He was 2018 WSOP Final Table. Place number 7. $1.4 million. Hope he put it in Bitcoin. But anyway, he made it. He's going to be flying in for a $1 million free roll. Are you excited about it? It's just like, I don't know.
I mean, it's interesting. I think it's a cool story that he's already final tabled the main event once. He's coming back to the Rio to just play for a free rolled $1 million. I imagine they're going to have to work out some sort of deal. Like, none of these guys are so rich that they're just playing heads up for $1 million, right? like $1 million or nothing.
You would make a deal?
Yeah, I'd make a fucking deal.
WSOP doesn't they don't facilitate deals.
Who cares?
You
This
gotta-
isn't hard to get done.
You gotta trust this guy, or you just gotta come with the paperwork.
Just have him ship you some Bitcoin ahead of time.
You gotta come with the paperwork. You gotta. It's crazy, right? I mean, yeah, I guess you could do it ahead of time, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess like yeah, there is a certain trust factor, but I'm sure that they could work out an escrow. They're gonna have plenty of time. I'm not sure when the heads up match takes place, but the American final table isn't until December 28th. So they already have 2 weeks prior to that where he can contact the final table list. But even if that doesn't occur, there's still going to be some downtime between the 28th and when they play. I'm sure it won't be till 2021.
Yeah,
Sometime.
for sure, for sure. The USA version final table is now in play, right? So you played,
Yeah.
And now we have a couple notables. First one being your man's the Green Hornet. What was that superhero that was a green? He was like he had like the
Green Lantern.
Yeah. My man, Apeshka de Silva, the Green Lantern, bro. He's lit. He always wears that the green jacket.
He's laggy as fuck. I love it.
The king of the lags.
Yeah, there was
Today
a
I told you were the last true lag.
Nah, Pesh counts.
Pesh is in, but he's MTT. Like, you know.
Doesn't matter. He's wild, man. He's crazy. Yeah, happy to see him there. Daniel folded a big hand to him outside of the money bubble. Folded jacks in a spot where I said that I think it's a call in general, but it's for sure a call against Pesh. Pesh had 9s. Daniel would have won. Big pot. He was at my table actually. No, that's not true. He got moved to my table after I busted because I was still sweating the tournament. But yeah, he had all the chips for the vast majority of what I saw, like while they were in the money and whatnot. Not shocked to see him there. I think he's 8 of 9 though, so he's not exactly living large in this particular scenario.
So they have a couple notables. Also, Joseph Herbert. I don't really know him too well, but he is coming in with a huge chip lead. It's interesting, right? Because the GG main event, I'm not sure if they did. Have you ever seen a final table on GG where like
Yeah, they didn't do that live.
Right.
They just drew seats.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, man. I think it's gonna be interesting. I'm looking forward to watching the heads up match for $1 million. I kind of hope they just play it, man. Like it'll just be like kind of cool to watch. Like,
I mean, we'll never know, obviously, but
I mean, we'll know. All of a sudden, some weird hands are going down that make no sense.
well, they can not
Yeah,
chop
they cannot
even.
make it obvious.
Well, no, they could just not chop even.
True.
You know, they could just do like leave 100K to play for or something like
Right.
that. It's way more reasonable than playing for 7 figures.
Oh, I thought you meant like not chop even. Like, nah, man, I'm better than you.
Yeah, they come in even in chips, and the Americans like, nah, I want 1.5 to 1.
Yeah. All right. Another thing that happened before we get into this interview with Daniel is High Stakes Poker was released last night.
Yep.
And what'd you think about the show? I saw it. I was excited, man. I threw up the tweet. I was like, yo, my man Durr's out there. Durr was like my man before you know? And I was like, let's go. Like, Durr's in the mix. And then I go to hit it and like, it's down. And I was like, so sad. I was like, what is happening? Like,
Yeah.
there was like a glitch in the matrix. It was a weird thing, but finally got up. I thought the first episode was fucking great. Like, I don't know who my man is that used to be a pitcher, but this guy is a star.
Michael Schwimmer.
Yeah, he's not playing.
Yeah.
He's like, let's go. 4 cold 4s from the small with the ace-3 offsuit, not folding anything, value betting the 10-6 after not getting 3-bet by ace-jack.
No, that was Durr.
Nah.
Durr had the 10-6.
Durr had the 10-6?
Yeah.
Nice. All right, but what'd you think about the first episode? There was a lot of, I'd love to see. I love to see it.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. I thought that the gameplay was shockingly wild. I guess like I shouldn't ever be surprised when Rick is in the game.
It wasn't even Rick.
Well, I mean, he started a lot of shit.
Yeah.
He just put on a lot of 1600s where people are really going out. But yeah, I thought it was great. I thought that the live ones, if you will, really put on a show, and the pros were kind of a lot more handcuffed than you would expect. It's only one episode. It's only maybe an hour and a half
Durr
to play.
was in the mix. He hit the 3-bet with
Bro,
the
he
4-3
folded
of
7s
diamonds.
pre.
all right, sure, they should have edited that one out. But but at the end of the day, he was 3-betting the 4-3 suited. He was coming in with he was doing his thing, bro. It was like dirt.
Yeah, there
He
was
opened the 9-8 off, bro.
man, there was some wild shit. JRB just opening 9 deuce suited for 5x.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of straddles taking place. Petrangelo had like some good hands and some not great spots, I guess. He did get, I don't know if you want to call it a cooler or whatever, but like he flats twice with ace jack suited versus Durr's 10-6 suited. And my man Schwimmer squeezing, I think, the ace 4 off. Apparently, like 14 was his baseball number. So every time he gets ace 4, he just plays it aggro.
Nice.
No, not nice. Like he's like cold calling 10s and 4-betting ace 4. Listen, I don't get it.
This guy did a little interview segment and he was like, bro, I used to play high stakes on the plane with the baseball players.
Yeah. That shit's legit.
Yeah.
Baseball players like to gamble, and especially like pitchers, because they're just spending most of their off days not playing.
The pitcher's game. That's what you need to get into, bro.
Yeah.
Get into the pitcher's game.
Jonathan Papelbon game.
Yeah, get in there, man. Go to San Diego, get into one of those Padres games.
Padres aren't cutting it, man. You got to get to a bigger market. Get in the LA market,
Oh, you got to go to the LA market.
Yeah, Padres.
Who's the Dominican dude from LA? He's kind of cool.
No,
he's not Dominican. He's Cuban. Wasn't he a big time? All right, it's all good, man. I'm sure the chat got you. You're not a big but what do you think about, I don't know, man. I'm like a guy that likes, I kind of see the strategy they're going for. Like, on a certain day, they release Poker After Dark. Boom. So you come in, log in. Next time they release high stakes poker. Boom. So now you have to log in again, So and then I kind of saw like what's coming down the pipeline. They also have like WSOP Asia or whatever. Like they have things coming down the pipeline. A lot of people are used to either the streams or like a Netflix type of thing where all the episodes drop at the same time. This is a little different. This is more like kind of similar to like old school TV, where it's like you have to tune in on Monday, 8:00, and come in. What do you think about that?
I'll be interested to see how it plays out. Like for someone like me, I won't watch it weekly. I just won't. Like I happened to catch it yesterday because you were pretty pumped for it and you were watching, but I don't think streaming apps work that way. Like I wouldn't show up to Netflix every week to watch my favorite show. I would just wait till it's done.
Yeah.
I do that with Showtime and Billions. Like I don't show up weekly to watch the latest episode. I just wait until that season's put on the streaming service in a full dump.
Yeah, man. Listen, Brian, you gotta listen to your people. You know what I'm saying? I'm not, I know, I don't know if we're on like first name terms or whatever, but you're my man, Brian. You chilling. You're one of the reasons I'm in here. You know what I'm saying? Just drop the whole thing. Like, just drop.
It's not up to him.
Come on, man.
It's up to Showtime.
Stop writing. Be like, I'm not writing shit unless you guys drop it all at the same time. It's up to you, man.
Showtime, HBO, Cinemax, they seem to be the only streaming platforms that still go. I guess that's not true. I guess like all network TV still releases weekly. Like Saturday Night Live will still update weekly. But again, that's like another show where it's like I don't watch it weekly anymore. I'll just watch like 5 or 6 in a drop.
I think this is why. Ready? I think the strategy is, if they drop it all at once, a lot of people would just like sign up, watch it all, boom, and then cancel.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think they're just saying, okay, if we drop it, with some stagnation, we retain longer, right? Because now it'll be 2 months.
I think that's true. I mean, we do that with Poker Out Loud. I do think it's a smart strategy. It also keeps like Twitter engaged weekly. I'll just be curious to see like, basically, I think like Poker After Dark also has to be good and keep people with that sort of buzz. Because remember, that's not a reboot anymore. Mm-hmm. That's been their product for 3 years now, and it's kind of gone through some, I guess, like evolution. Where now we're back to what I assume is going to be like the produced shows. Like I imagine the next Poker After Dark episode, or maybe it already launched.
It already launched. I wasn't. I'll just leave my opinion out.
Is it? But I'm assuming it's like episodic. Like
yeah, it's the same
yeah,
concept.
So like 60 minutes,
45 minutes,
whatever. Yeah,
episodic. Tune in every week.
Yeah.
Certain time and date.
Yeah. So see, like that's a problem. Like I didn't even know it dropped already, and I'm on it. Mm-hmm. So like I didn't pay that close attention to it. High Stakes Poker has the buzz. Hopefully, like they start to piggyback off of one another, because I think it's important for both social media and Poker Go for people to like keep that buzz going more than once a week.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of who's on it. The thing is, like, no one draws eyes like Durrr and Ivey.
Yeah.
You know, it's when those people are on, all eyes, right? It's like you just can't compete with those eyes, right? I guess there's, I know I got my man Daniel in here. I don't know if he was in the mix in one of those.
But like, how much are they marketing who's on it?
I mean, they market when Durr's on.
Yeah, I guess I didn't really see. I saw the trailer, but that trailer for High Stakes Poker was everybody that's on it, not just who's on the next episode.
Thing is, when it comes to Durr, I think people market for them, right? Like I was on, like, oh, I'm watching because Durr's on, and
Sure.
a lot of people were just like the buzz of Durr or the buzz of Ivy is just so huge. I think.
But that reach is pretty negligible, I think.
Damn, bro.
I'm just saying, you have.
I just
5,000
got
followers.
fucking wrecked. Like, oh, nah, bro. You ain't shit. Listen, your reach is negligible. And whoever retweets you, also negligible. But if I retweet,
Just know that you're 1% of Negreanu's following.
that's why I brought my man on.
Yeah.
You know? It's all good. I don't measure my success on my followers, all right?
Okay. This is your version.
But go ahead,
This is your version of Goggins?
Nah, do your thing. 15,000. Well, how much you got?
I don't know.
Yeah, now you don't know.
I don't know. I really don't know.
Bet it's not as much as Daniel.
No, it's definitely not.
Bet it's not as much as Durr.
No, probably
Bet
not.
it's not as much as Ivy.
Does Ivy have Twitter?
He's so big, he's beyond Twitter.
I actually believe that to be true more so than him having a Twitter. I don't think he has Twitter.
But go ahead, tell me your strat.
Oh, I'm just saying that I think that like that's the one thing that network TV did really well is if they're running commercials for these shows or whatever, it was very clear who was going to be on the next episode. It was very clear like what you were tuning in for. I was on 2 episodes of Poker After Dark. I have no idea if they've come out yet.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, your episodes haven't come out. I watched the Poker After Dark. Your episodes haven't come out yet. Does Antonio have a large following? Yeah, right.
Does he have Twitter? I assume so.
Yeah, he has Twitter. He's
Yeah.
just not active as much.
I could see him having like a manager for his account. Like he never actually tweets.
I think he just tweets every now and then,
Yeah.
Damn, bro, why you gotta put me down like that? I was super hyped about like, about the people, I think the people just want me to do more fucking threads. Like they just want the threads. Like, oh, I was thinking about my ex-girlfriend, and then all of a sudden my heart rate started going up, and then the guy looked at me, and then he thought I was nervous, so he called and showed him the nuts.
Yeah, the tap thread's good.
I know,
I think it's really good.
nice. I'm glad when you say nice things.
I mean, I compliment it where it's proper. You're good at certain things. You're very good at the tap. You're the king live pro.
I'm the ultimate live pro.
The ultimate live pro. That's what we want.
The ultimate live pro. What was your name?
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm the ultimate live pro. You're like the old timey
Old-timey
regs.
Yeah.
The old timey regs are dangerous, man.
Mm-hmm.
They're dangerous as fuck. So where does it go from here? Now there is I do want to like circle back around to a little bit of back of like WSOP, right? So a little bit of the controversy was surrounding their COVID policy,
Yeah.
right? So the COVID policy is if you get COVID, you are disqualified from the USA final table, which...
Well, it was from both, but yeah.
Yeah, okay. But now that one's already done, so yeah. That kind of sucks. Like, imagine my man Joseph Herbert just gets COVID. Chip leader of the main event.
Yeah, of course.
The main event. But yes, that sucks, man. That's a lot of equity, right? So a lot of people were saying, what if you just let him blind out, right? Definitely increases his equity in the tournament instead of going from like just snap getting 0.
Sure.
Also, what happens if 2 people get COVID?
Sure. Well, if 2 people get it, I'm sure it's going to go by chip count. But I honestly, this is much to do about nothing. Like they have 2 full weeks between the end of making the final table and actually playing it out. It's plenty of time to quarantine yourself and ensure that you don't fucking get COVID. You're playing for 1.5 million. Like be responsible. Not trying to, put all of the responsibility on the players themselves, but like, this isn't a very high risk thing. I think the likelihood of somebody getting COVID is like less than 10%. That said, yeah, I do agree that like blinding them out is probably more fair. Somebody tweeted earlier in the week talking about the WPT final tables where I think it was maybe the Gardens final table. They were considering running it like early in December, and all the final tablists didn't feel comfortable, so they ended up not doing it. But in the talks of potentially running it, everybody came to an agreement that if for some reason they agreed to run it and somebody got COVID, they would give them their ICM worth.
That's
so
cool.
effectively, like that person will have initiated a chop. Now I don't know how that would work because the second one person gets ICM for their stack, everybody else kind of has to, in some way, shape, or form, also be compensated for ICM. Like it wouldn't be very fair to give like the person third in chips their ICM cut and then make the other 5 play it out. I don't think.
Yeah, it seems a little unfair, but it's also just like weird circumstances, right?
Yeah, but you're pulling like, you know, third and a half place money out of the prize pool now. So like he's guaranteeing himself a pretty big ladder without ever having to show up. It's almost beneficial to get COVID if that's the case, especially if you're a chip leader. You just snap, get an ICM chop, right, without any effort.
I don't know if people
maybe not as a chip leader, but like if you're like one of those say there's a massive chip leader.
Yeah, say you're like
and you're
sixth
like,
or something like.
Maybe, but like, you know, a lot of times it's almost better for the 6th place player to just gamble. But like say that you're like third in chips, but the chip leader is like massive. So like maybe 3x you. It's pretty beneficial to just like get a chop in that spot. You know,
guys,
you don't
nobody like clip this and like, you know, like cancel Berkey because he's telling people to get COVID for the chop. Like
that's what you took out of this?
Nah, not me. I'm just I you know, I'm everywhere and nowhere at the same time. You know? Like,
okay.
I could see people like, oh, Berkey doesn't give a fuck about COVID, telling people to just get COVID to get the chop, you know, and then all of a sudden, like,
all I'm saying is that there are
just trying to protect
that
you,
people
man.
will take advantage of.
I'm just trying to protect you, man. I know how social media is. I know the cancel culture, you know, the deep state, all that shit. The shit comes back to haunt you, bro.
Sure.
They'll get you. I already know.
I think some of your wits may have gone with your hair.
Nah, I mean, don't be again. Now you're trying to put me down again. You see what I deal with, people. Like that's already 2 shots. We haven't even started the interview. What? How 20 minutes? It's like 1 every 10 minutes. Yeah. Okay. Just saying, bro. But anyway, we got Dan and Negreanu up in the mix. Mm-hmm. I guess if you want to handle the whole interview, you know, I'm just saying, you know. But he's in the mix. He's agreed to come on. I've been watching every single one of his matches against Doug Polk, right? You know, I'm in an emotional roller coaster with him. You know what I'm saying? Like it's wild out here. But he's come on. I'm excited. I'm sure you're excited. And I don't know what he's gonna say. I've watched his post-game interviews. He could go. You know, we have questions prepared, but I don't know where this interview is gonna go. We could just be lit the whole time.
Yeah, of course. I
don't have the Trulies on. I'm kind of like trying to, you know, take care of myself a little bit. But if he gets lit, I might just bring the Truly on. I don't know. I might just go. Like it might just be like, all right, Daniel, let's do it. Like get lit.
Sure.
I don't know, man. I'm excited. Daniel's coming on, bro. I gotta give the man a little bit of a, you know, dramatic pause. Like what you mean? All right, Daniel. You're live on the S4Y podcast. This is an honorary moment for me. Like this is crazy. Like you were the first book I ever read. I tell that story all the time, actually.
All right, I'm pretty sure the word you used is ornery, which isn't the same as honorary. And I don't think honorary is a good one. We should look that one up.
I think, honestly, he just made up a word between honorary and ornery. So he might be somewhere between humbled and jumping out of his seat.
All right, listen, man. I'm just
number 3 coming at you. From
You see what I'm saying? Like I got it, man. It's all good. No one's bringing me down today. It's all good. I don't give a fuck. Like let's go.
We had this whole backstory like planned up where we were gonna like flesh out the beef, how you guys got to this point. We just skipped right over that. We're here now. We're off the cuff.
I mean, yeah, but we could do it with you, right? I mean, it could be like a whole thing. Like, but yeah, it's an honor to have you, D-Negs, of course. Yeah, man, there's just a lot to talk about. So let's kind of start a little bit of how this whole like beef with you and Doug Polk even started. So I think it began a little bit with like the Supernova stuff that happened, and then there was like a lot of riot between that and then, you know, the whole more rake is better type of thing. Like, how did you feel when all that stuff was going down?
So it's interesting because I think if you ask him when it started and when you ask me how it started, we're probably going to have like a different memory set in terms of like how it did. But I think I heard him say, and this makes sense actually, because it precedes where I thought, was I think I made a comment I think it was like 2011 or so. I grinded really hard, learned online from the late great Rich Lindaker, who passed away last year, sadly, and Tom Marchese. I was playing 100, 200 on stars, no limit hold'em. Okay, and the first month it was a full game with a long ass list, like 50 deep, right? By the end of the month, I was playing 3-4-handed. Nobody else wanted to play because I'd learned really, really quickly how to adapt. Obviously, going in, I mean, I'm the fish, right? And then after about a month, I was able to do well, playing against only the best players, and all the mediocre regs were just, I'm out. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, well, someone said to me, do you think you could be 25-50 online? And this is a couple of years later, maybe 3 years later, 2-3 years later. And I said, I think with a couple weeks of study, probably 2 weeks of study, I could probably, win in that game. I believe that I can, right? I wasn't saying for a fact that I can, but I believe that if I work hard in 2 weeks, with my knowledge base, that I would succeed. He took offense to that. He thought I was sort of slighting online players, which isn't the case. I have the utmost respect for these guys. I mean, when you think about it, first and foremost, I had 2 guys helping me that were online guys to teach me. So I've always been open to learning. So it was less a case of me slamming online pros who have worked really hard, especially with solvers and all that, to improve the game, and more a question of like, I'm super confident in me, in that I can learn the stuff they learn, and then implement it into my game and be able to be successful. So that's when he first took offense, I think, and made a splash with that. And then of course it morphed into many other things. And my beefs with him in the beginning really stemmed from irresponsible clickbait type titles. Well, the first one for me was when he said, the title of the thing said Jason Mercier cheating allegations, right? And when in our day and our society now, you see that, you think, what the hell did Jason do, right?
Of course,
he's being accused of cheating. That was not what the video was about. It wasn't Jason being accused of cheating. It was nothing remotely close to that. But using that title, and you know how the world works now, that sticks. And all of a sudden, you're basically besmirching a guy for nothing. So I took offense to that, and I said so. For me, it felt like it started when someone asked me, like, who are some of the young guys in the game that I should follow and learn from? And I mentioned Jason Mercer. I mentioned Jason Somerville, Jonathan Little, maybe Alec Torelli. I don't know. But I didn't mention him because I didn't like his approach, with the attack mode stuff.
Word. And
he took that as a personal slight. And that evolved into the whole, 4 or 5 year attack on basically doing everything he can to personally attack me. And it all, basically all died off until recently. And we're just like, we revitalized the, the dispute.
I have to say personally, this is a little selfish of me, but I hate that you took on this challenge. It was a nice, quiet 12 months of Doug off into the sunset, retired. I think to some degree, all of us have kind of, or all of us in this room have kind of felt the ire of Polk's YouTube presence. And I've said this a million times. I think that like he's a fantastic businessman when it comes to increasing his bottom line. But like our vision of business ethics just like greatly diverge. And you re-sparking or rekindling his platform has not been enjoyable to me.
Well, I'm so sorry to hear that, Berkey, and I can understand why. And I think a lot of people echo the similar sentiment, and they're like, oh my God, isn't this shit over yet? Can't he just like move on or whatever? But, I was in a different place. This was the first time he'd actually ever challenged me, and he actually said later, he's like, he just threw it out there. I'll play a heads up in my favorite format and da-da-da. And I was like, there never in a million years did he expect me to say yes, because it seems pretty stupid for someone to do that. But I did. And he was like, oh shit, bluff called. So now I actually have to, go through. You can't throw the challenge out and then not do it. And I thought, it's a COVID year. I'm locked down. Might as well study, learn how to play. I can afford to play at the stakes we're playing. And I felt like it was a good motivator to really sort of work hard at once, because every 2 to 3 years, I always get back into the lab, or have throughout my career, and just realize like, all right, how far behind the curve am I right now? All right, let's put in the work. Let's get back to where we feel like we're slightly in front of the curve. So this was a good time to do that. And the progression in my game in a very short time has been good, like really good, I think. I feel like I remember the first week when I started playing heads up, and I literally had no shot playing against like 10 cent, 20 cent dudes. They'd crush me. They were crushing me. I didn't win any sessions. I lost every single time, But then slowly but surely, it all starts to come together, and I'm building out a game that I think is pretty darn good.
Let me ask you something, Daniel, because So one of the things that I was thinking when you decided to take on this challenge was if there was a little bit of you that thought, if I win this challenge, which is, it's monumental feat, maybe you took it on because potentially if you do this, you go down as the best of all time. Was that a little bit of it or no?
I wouldn't say best of all time, but I would say that, similar sentiment, really didn't have much to lose other than money, right? Mm-hmm. Like going into this, like he's like a 5-6-1 favorite, right? Right. So from that perspective, if I lose, well, that was the expected result, right? Most, that's the betting line and whatever. If I can make it competitive, which I believe that I have, or if I can actually win the match, that would be difficult. That would be far more difficult for him to swallow than me, right? So for him, what's in it is he, has plus EV as far as he's concerned, that he's going to make some money out of it. But if you look at it from a perspective of like, whatever you want to call it, image or brand or whatever, it's like he really has all, he's the one that comes in with everything to lose as being, arguably the best heads-up player at a time, and then losing to, if you lose to a 46-year-old, kid who played small ball and raises to find out where he's at, that's that would be kind of hard to swallow. But what I've learned after playing 10,000 hands is that I thought that was a lot of hands, and it's not. 25,000 hands sounded like a lot, but it's really not, So I'm realizing that two players that are relatively close in skill, if they are, a 25,000 hand match is going to be decided first and foremost by luck, which is crazy, right? Because it's just not as big a sample size as I originally thought. I thought it was plenty of hands, but I now seeing what's happened in the first 10,000, being like, for example, like 9.5 buy-ins below all in EV, it's like $400,000, right? Like of just coin flips of just something that where I'm supposed to break even on in the long run. That's 400K head start. That's a lot over 11,000 hands,
So I guess to that end, I have a couple follow-up questions. First and foremost, does that mean that you're going to try to extend this match beyond 25,000? And secondarily, is there any scenario by which you would quit at 12.5K?
Yes to all of that. There is. So here's first and foremost, my decision to play past 12,000 5-hander hands is 100% dependent upon whether I think this match can be competitive, right? If I feel like he's beating me for like 10 big blinds per 100 or anything like that, then no. But when I break down the numbers of the match, right, you can't count all in EV as beating somebody or losing. That's just luck, right? That's you cut that out, right? So far in this match through 10,000 hands or so, he's been beating me for 10 big blinds per 100. I would openly wager, anybody who wants to take me up on this, it's an open wager, that I've lost at least at a 3-to-1 clip with natural 2-pair or better coolers. Right, so where I have kings and 5s, he has kings and 7s, or I have a straight, he has a flush, et cetera, et cetera. If I have a set, he has a set. So if you factor all that in, it's hard to quantify exactly how much that's worth, but I would imagine it's in like the 10 buy-in range, pretty close. So I'm not here suggesting that, like I'm a favorite, but I definitely feel strongly about the way that the game has progressed and my progression in it. And I definitely feel like from a playing perspective, the match is very, very close. I think from the naked eyeball, right, especially if you have commentators that are very biased, when you watch the match, you see Doug pounding me, right? Man, overbets, bombs, boom, all these things, and me folding a lot, right? Which is what you do when someone bets big. The extreme example of that would be like if somebody went all in every hand and you can only call, right? Like they're going to win almost every hand, right? But they're not going to win money necessarily. So, that's a red line conversation of like how important that is, winning hands, without a showdown. So when you watch it, the naked eye might think, man, he's getting destroyed, but they miss a few things, right? They miss a few things. They're like, okay, well, maybe there's some lost value sometimes when he bets big and gets a fold, but would have, gotten called for something like half pot or 3/4 pot. So it's not as simple as, and one commentator in specific, this people tell me, because I don't really listen, he's like, when Doug bets big on the river and I fold, the commentators, and you don't see the cards, the commentator's like, man, another sick bluff from Doug. It's amazing how he's just running over him with these like nothing hands, right? 10 minutes later, I make a big bet on the river. Doug tanks and Doug folds. And it's, wow, Daniel's just not getting value for his hands in these spots. And Doug's making big laydowns. And I'm like, you fucking genius, right? You don't even see what the fucking cards were. But of course, he made an amazing bluff, right? And I was like, I had it. It's like so stupid, but it's been fun to sort of listen and hear people's perception of what's happening in the match and knowing like there's very few people, myself and him and, my team and his or whatever, that are seeing hole cards. to actually know what actually is. But like I said, I'll put my money where my mouth is. If anybody wants to bet me as much as you'd like, I'll bet 3-to-1 ratio of 2 natural pair or better losing by the river. And this includes, it would require some cooperation on his side. It includes hands that maybe were laydowns. If he's folding 2 pair every time, you can count all those too.
Word. I think there was a couple of those. I mean, I'm not trying to kill your action, but obviously the ace queen, ace of hearts, ace king, ace of spade hand, the king seven, all these kind of hands were like really big hands. You know, there is a little bit of bias towards the commentary. I'm not gonna lie, like I'm biased, but I'm biased towards your side. So, you know, but I'm sure that the other commentaries are biased. How about the Garrett tweet? There was a little bit of you might take on Garrett. That would be fun to watch.
Yeah,
it would be fun to watch, especially if it was live. That'd be a sick one.
Yeah, the only problem with so here's the thing: if you're gonna do a live match, right, which I would have done this with Doug as well. If you're gonna do a live match, doing a live 25,000 hand cash game match is just silly. Right. You know, you're gonna be spending 4 years on this. You know, like a full-time job? No, because online you can play a lot more hands. So if you were going to play a format heads up, I think that, you know, Poker Go has a really good one with the high stakes or the heads up duel or whatever it is, right? That would be a great format where we can just play like sort of a 5-hour kind of freeze out, which adds a little different element because it adds a little bit of the tournament sit and go aspect to it. But as long as you have enough deep play, I think it's still interesting to watch for viewers and stuff. But obviously I'm not going to do a 25,000 hand live match with anybody. Because that doesn't seem fun at all. But I think a hybrid is good. Like, obviously, if it wasn't for COVID and all that, and I could play weekly against Doug live, I think that really benefits me significantly, right? But obviously, for a lot of reasons. But you know, because of COVID, he doesn't want to go down there. I don't want to go down there. You know, vaccine's almost here, so who knows? Maybe after all that, we might play some live.
So I guess to that end a little bit, I mean, I feel like I'm deviating a little bit because I do want to talk a little bit about your prep at some point, but this seems relevant to what you kind of just brought up. So with all the preparation that you've put into this and the amount of volume of hands that you're going to be putting in, what does this look like then for your career hereafter? I know you kind of mentioned in the past that you've kind of gotten in the lab, proved to yourself that you could beat certain things. Obviously, this has to be the best poker version of yourself that you've been. So are we going to start to see you maybe chase number one on the tournament career earnings again, or are we going to see you get back into cash, maybe playing online again? I mean, where do you go to from here, I guess?
You know, it's a great question, and you hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. Like, I played the main event, the World Series main event, which you mentioned. I folded jacks against Pesh, and I didn't know it was him. Like, sure. If I knew it was Pesh, my money would have been in the middle. But just to illustrate the hand of the World Series, people know I raised under the gun plus one jammed for basically pretty close to my stack, and then Pesh in the big line moves all in, and I'm sitting there with jacks. I just folded jacks a minute ago and ran into it. Would have been ace, king, queens. I would have lost. This one I would have won because I folded. He had nines. He flopped the 9, and then I would have rivered the straight. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. As far as playing in it in a ring game, I felt so dominant, frankly, because it's so much easier to play 9-handed than it is heads up. And the reason I say that is, first of all, you don't have to play every hand. You don't have to play queen 6 offsuit 100% of the time. Like, you can fold a lot, and you can pick up on similar. I have to be careful the way I say that. I think just in general, if you become really, really good at heads up, the transition to playing ring game tournaments or live is easier as long as you can have that gear of patience. Because the danger is you play heads up, you never fold queen 6 offsuit. Like, what do you do with jack 7 suited? Like, you know, that's like, ooh, baby, how many bets can I get in heads up?
This is the problem I have whenever I play live poker. Those hands look good.
Yeah, this has been a problem you've had ever since I remember you starting to play poker.
Sure. Yeah, I'm built for the heads up arena for sure. So I guess, like, is there any chance that you'll pursue number one career earnings again?
Well, you know, when the world opens back up, it's something that I sort of gave up on when they started having like all these Triton events and these $1 million buy-ins, and I wasn't going to travel the word for them. But and I'm pretty far behind. I'm still going to play in these things, but I don't know about chasing. Like, I don't really want to travel. I enjoy being home. Like, the last year has been great. You know, me and my wife gotten even closer, just the two of us here at the house, and you know, traveling and upstarting my schedule and doing different things is not high on my priority list. The World Series of Poker is. I'll always continue to chase that. But as far as like, I'm really enjoying heads up poker, so I could see myself doing this for a while. Like, after this match is over, there's a decent chance that win or lose this match that I would accept or offer a rematch, because I've enjoyed it. I've had fun with it. I think overall it's quote unquote good for poker, because it's, there's all these different streams. You guys do a stream and do, commentary. They've got one. GG Poker's got one. So there's been a lot of buzz and a lot to follow with it. And I don't know. I think that's been interesting. Much like, and I was listening to you guys talk about this, High Stakes Poker being back and them doing weekly episodes to recreate the magic, right? He talked about old school TV, Christian said. I'm like, old school? My God, how fucking young are you, right? TV, it's regular TV. Like,
bro, I was watching. I legit was watching you like 2 a.m. NBC. Like I would tune in and just like watch.
Well, that's the thing, right? So the goal, I think, with High Stakes Poker and keeping it weekly is you want the what do you call it? The water cooler talk, right? After the night of the session, the next day, like, oh my God, did you see Durrr last night laying down the pocket sevens and this guy, this pitcher dude, and we have a whole week to anticipate. So I think I'm like Berkey. I like to digest shows all in one sitting too. But I think for something like this, I think it being episodic and I think it being edited, much like Poker After Dark should be, it's really, really good for poker. And, people want their live fix of no hole cards, heads up. I think the heads up match would be a lot more interesting to people if you could see hole cards, but for obvious reasons, that's a little much. That just creates a whole new level of dissection in terms of tendencies.
I think it'd be pretty cool if some media outlet was able to get the whole cards at the end of the week and put together like a best of or a highlight reel or something like that. But that takes a lot of, obviously it's difficult already with WSOP because they don't have hand histories, but then it also takes a lot of preparation.
I've actually been doing that after every session. I've been putting together all the hands that went to showdown. So it's not all the hands, but it's, all the main ones.
Sure. I think that there's a lot of room to grow here. And I do think that you made a very good point there, which, the community wide, I think kind of owes both you and Doug a thank you, and Phil and Chance and everybody else who's like willing to get out there, stick their neck on the line, play super high stakes for the community to kind of like enjoy and pick apart. And, like you said, everybody's a critic. Everybody has the answers. Everyone's an armchair quarterback. But the important thing is that everybody's talking about it. So I do find these matches to be very fascinating. I hope that the media side of things can evolve, and I don't know what that takes. I know on the Chance side, on the Phil Gelfond side, they've been doing a great job just because everybody's pretty cooperative. So Moonlight Master does put together like these 20-minute highlight reels where there are whole cards revealed, and we kind of get a lot more information of what's going on in the match. Now with you guys, you're a lot more protective of that information, understandably so. It's a massive match for a lot of money where you're kind of being booked as a huge dog. So I think that there's a process there that can evolve, and it seems like you're at the forefront. Do you think that this will be something that ever involves like PokerGo on a grander scale, or a platform of that nature?
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, if it wasn't for COVID, I could have foreseen like the Friday match happening live every week, and doing that portion live. Like I agreed to maybe roughly like 10 to 20% of hands being shown. I don't want to show them all because I feel like, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes that are non-GTO that, if you see the patterns of those mistakes, smart people can dissect that and, exploit me for the mistakes that I'm making. So, and vice versa, of course. But, I like at this point, I think obviously because of the COVID thing, it's put a lot of, issues or a lot of like barriers to that plan. But I think, post when this is all over, like I would speak to him, and I've spoken to him privately about maybe we could, share hands and make some really cool content where people can actually see some of the bigger spots where, maybe he made a big laydown or I made a bad fold or whatever the case may be. See how I worded that? It's just in case the commentator's listening.
Sure.
How about talk to us a little bit about the prep, right? So you were playing WSOP during the summer, and then you booked this match. You didn't have a lot of time. So how did that, like, walk us through, okay, you booked the match, you're still playing WSOP GG, and then what happened after that? Because it was only like a month.
Yeah, that was definitely the most challenging thing, right? So I'm playing World Series of Poker, which is not good training for heads up, no limit, hold'em, two tabling online. It's just not. So I was consumed there. I was streaming. I was in Cabo doing my thing. So after that, I took a week or so to breathe after the World Series of Poker. And then I got starting to work with my guys and like, practicing, doing sessions, playing against them, constantly. Basically, the way in which the process worked was like, take everything I've known about poker for 20 years, right, and strip me of all of it. So imagine like taking a soldier and stripping him of all of his weapons so he's completely naked. Can't even punch, can't even kick. And they're like, all right, we're going to release your arm, and now you can start throwing a jab. Okay, I want you to master that, almost like Karate Kid style, wax on, wax off. So get this mastered, right? And you're like, okay, I got this, but I can't win like this. Like, that's all right. You got it mastered? Good. All right, now we're going to add a right cross. Okay, so you got a jab and a right cross. Okay, still can't win, right? And then you got to kick. And eventually, because here's the problem. If you try to overload somebody by giving them so much information and say, do all this, they're going to screw it up, which is part of the reason I started the match with 2 sizes, right? I'm using a 20 and a 75. That's not optimal. Like, you're giving away EV when you do that, because there's a lot of spots that require different sizes. The problem is, if you're not good at balancing them and you're not good at, executing, you're actually costing yourself more by using multiple sizes. So I started with a 20-75, added like a 40, added like a few others here and there for specific spots, some overbetting as well, of course, which is obviously important. But basically, it's like building out a car from the frame with no engine, and you start to put it together. And right now, I feel like, if I would have started the match today rather than when I did then, I'd be obviously a lot more prepared. But that's not an excuse. It's just a fact. I took it on, and I'm happy that I did. And either way, there's going to be a learning curve. And I imagine, 5,000 hands from now, I'm going to continue to add weapons to the arsenal.
Yeah, I think that you touched on a few things that I personally was slightly critical of whenever we were doing commentary. And it wasn't because I thought that like you or the team were making errors. It was more like I was recognizing the process that you were going through, and I couldn't help but notice like what it was costing you. So the big thing is, when you only are limited to a couple sizes, it's not so much that you're giving up EV, assuming that you're balanced in those sizes. It's more so that his counter strategy becomes a lot easier. So for Doug, when he's studying, he only has to put in a couple nodes or a couple betting options for you, and now he gets to perfect his counter strategy like pretty easily. What I personally observed was a lot of similar to like what you were referring to with this commentator who was saying like you're always getting bluffed on the river and you always have it when you don't. It was more so just that like kind of what you referenced earlier is that Doug's red line is significantly higher than yours. Is that something that you guys have put any emphasis on since then? Like, are you trying to increase your red line, or is it more so that you're working on the earlier nodes in the game tree, such as like pre-flop, on the flop, in order to avoid like these difficult river decisions?
To be honest, so I know that obviously, like maybe there was a time in poker, and I think Doug mentioned this during his training, where you could just redline people and you just win the money, right? Because you just redline people to death. It's not the way poker really works anymore, right? It just doesn't, right? Like I said, with that extreme example, the guy who goes all in every hand wins the red line every time. But he's not going to win money because he's doing it, too much, right? There are certain spots where, a solver will not support an overbet. And if you continue to do it in those spots, well, you might win a red line, but that's not how you keep score. The red line isn't how you keep score. I essentially, obviously, for the most part, concede the red line here because, it have to with the sizings that I'm choosing. Because bottom line is, from a theory standpoint, when somebody bets 20% of pot, you should call more often. When someone bets 4 times the pot, you should fold way more often, right? So by that alone, if someone's only using 20 and 75, another person's using sizes that are much bigger, they win the red line already based on that. Now, that doesn't mean, say, for example, if I was able to execute perfectly a 20 and a 75 at a GTO clip, let's say I was perfect, which I'm not and no human could be, that would win. It would win alone. It would be giving up EV, and it would do better if it had multiple sizes. But if you played the perfect GTO strategy and you had 20 and 75, you could theoretically win if you did it perfectly and your opponent is using multiple sizes but doing them incorrectly. Like if he was overbetting incorrectly, and I wasn't making these mistakes, that would overcome the loss of not having multiple sizes.
Well, I do want to press on that a little bit. You're kind of telling one side of the coin. You would perform well through your bet sizings, but your counter strategy to his bet sizings would potentially be flawed and cost you money, and vice versa. His counter strategy to your 2 simple sizes would be a lot easier for him to get as close to GTO as possible. So like, what I'm
saying is if you had a bot, like actually, let's say a real bot,
Yeah.
played a real bot, and
Yep.
you only use the 20 and 75, and the bot would win.
Well,
bot's gonna win.
it would win when it's betting, but it still has to have a counter strategy, right?
Well, I mean, it's going to play perfectly.
Yeah. So yes, that's the added layer, is that you're also responding perfectly to whatever strategy your opponent is conveying.
Right.
Which
basically the theory is this: if a bot only used bet size of 20 and 75, but played a perfect strategy against your opponent's bets, that player wins. The bot wins all.
Yeah. I think that the counter strategy point is a really important one, because that's why the desire for nuance exists. That's why there's so much EV to earn. It's because you and Doug are both flawed. You're humans, right? You're both making a ton of mistakes. And the more confusing that you can be to one another, the more that EV exchange will favor the person who's executing more critically. So I definitely understand like where you're coming from the red line standpoint, and it does make a lot of sense. I'm pumped to see, like, I enjoy watching the evolution, because I'm not seeing that really on Doug's side, right? Like, I just know that he's a good studied player, and he's just there and he's executing, and he's probably pretty unwavering in his strategy. But like session to session, week to week, I'm seeing like, oh, that's a new size. Oh, that's an overbet in a spot where Daniel hasn't done that before. So like, I'm seeing you curate this information in real time. And I guess like, I kind of asked this before, but you jokingly said you wanted to play 100,000 hands. Is that something you would entertain?
Yeah, maybe. Sure. Why not? I mean, like, I feel good about where my game has progressed. And, you touched on the evolution thing. It's like, it's funny because like, what I like to do is I stick to heuristics when I have them, right? Mm-hmm. Like if I'm using heuristics that I know that I've studied and I'm going to use them, I use them. My poker brain, of course, is like, man, though, shit, I just want to overbet here.
Yeah.
Or I just want to check this hand. You know what I mean?
I just want to bet to find out where he's at.
Yeah, exactly. I just want to bet and find out where he's at. How do I find out where he's at if I don't bet? No, but there are spots where my poker brains, I intuitively know from studying myself, where I'm like, all right, so I'm betting 75% pot here. But I think another bet size might have been better here, whether it was smaller, whether it was bigger. Mm-hmm. But I'm stuck, or at least I was with the 20 and 75 to pretty much sticking with one size. So, but the good news is that, when I do, execute the new sizes that I add, like I feel very good about them, and they feel like it feels like a relief, because it was really actually difficult to have such a big gap between 20 and 75 and not have anything in the middle. Mm-hmm. Like there's just so many spots that come up where like a 33 or a 40 seem like, or even a half pot, seem really, really good. So, continually adding those as we progress, but doing it correctly, right? Not just being like, yeah, I got all these new sizes, 3x pot, 2x pot. I'm like, but am I doing it right? And then that's important. Like, am I doing them at the right frequencies, on the right board textures, with the right hand classes? All that stuff comes into play.
So there's another match coming up that I'm curious how excited you are to see, and that is the MJ versus Limitless match. How excited are you to see that match? And then I also saw on Twitter potentially that MJ would play Garrett if you don't play him. What are your thoughts on both those things?
Well, that's going to be certainly fun to watch. A couple high-level guys with different, approaches to the game. Potentially, maybe. I mean, I think for poker fans, I think sort of like this year, like heads-up poker is kind of like in. It's the cool thing to do. Like make these challenges and have everybody like pick a side. And there's been a ton of money wagered, for example, on mine. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine seeing two guys who have been at it for a lot longer than certainly I have would create a different dynamic. Like I've seen some of the hand history sometimes that Patrick Leonard posts from like Barry Sweets playing against Linus Love. And I'm like, what? Like what the hell? And I saw Doug actually tweet. He's like, there's exactly 0 out of 2 people that would be making any of these plays in our match. Like there's spots where these guys are like 5 betting turn and, calling river with 8 high. I mean, they're going next level crazy. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting for people to see, guys like that. I don't know how many people don't necessarily in the mainstream don't know these guys as well, right? But I think they'd be quickly learn to sort of have a favorite one way or the other. And the more of that stuff happens, I think, I think it's good, because I've always believed like poker isn't this professional, soft-spoken, everybody's playing golf. It's a fucking gambling game where people fucking hate each other, and you want to fucking rip the guy's head off and smack him and talk some smash and fucking have an avatar that dances like mine when you play on GG Poker and give you the screw you. I mean, poker's like, it's raw. It's not knitting, and a little bit of blood, it's I think it gets everyone's juices flowing.
So tell us how you feel about Doug Polk, obviously. I mean, we're after that one.
Well, I mean, listen, I think the relationship between Doug and I has evolved to a significant place where I think the animosity is subsided for the most part, right? Because we've had a chance to talk about some of the things from the past or whatever, and so we're at a civil place right now, and I don't see, he may take offense, I would imagine, to me suggesting that he's been lucky so far, except like I can essentially prove it. All NEV is all NEV is like represents half of the deficit right now, and the other half, as I said, I'd be willing to put my money where my mouth is and lay 3-1 on significant coolers. Like you mentioned King 7 against King 5. There was 2 hands where that came.
Yeah, I remember. Where
I got stacked, where he made kings and 7s versus my kings and 5s. Like, it's happened twice. Not that that's the only ones. Obviously, I've coolered him here and there, but overall, it's a match of 2 players that are playing kind of differently, obviously, because he's using different sizes and going with a little bit of a different approach than I am. But I think it's a closer match, and maybe he would take offense to that. Maybe that will restart the feud, because he'll be like, this idiot thinks that he can. Because I saw him, and I was really surprised that he said this. Well, I think maybe he was not really thinking about it clearly, but he was asked, like, how much does he think he should be beating me for? And he said between 10 to 15 big blinds per 100. Okay.
Right.
And at the time he's up 20, but that includes 10, which is from all in EV, right? So if you break it down, he's been beating me for 10 so far. If he thinks he should be winning between 10 to 15, well, that would suggest that he doesn't think he's been lucky so far. And I challenge that one. Like, that one's kind of like, that would be an absurdly, I mean, for lack of a better term, delusional take that, to think that he's, had the unlucky side of the first 10,000 hands. So yeah, I don't know, maybe me saying that, probably he doesn't want to talk about luck and variance. And I understand why, because it's, been a big topic, because it's been so one-sided. Like, the odds, I think, if you run it, I don't know what the odds are, but it's got to be like 1% of running after 10,000 hands, 9.5 buy-ins above all in EV. 9.5 buy-ins. That's like 3 times beating pair over pair, a whole bunch of other times, and literally never once through 10,000 hands having your opponent win a chip when they were behind. Like, I've yet to in every all-in one time have the worst hand when we get it in and won. That's astronomical. Like, that's not. And also, you have to think about too, when this stuff happens, right? The mental toll it takes. Like, he was, joking about it. You mentioned I had ace queen of hearts against king 10 of hearts. The board comes queen 5, jack of hearts on the turn. I got the ace. I lose that pot, right? I take a breather. I go, okay, go to the bathroom, just bring it together, whatever. Click back in, get 2 aces. Yes, he gets it in with kings. Baby doll, right? Yeah. So I got aces against kings. Spanks a king right on the flop. I lose that one. So it's like, that's not easy. I'm human. So, if those hands, for example, were going, my way, you never know how much that can affect sort of other hands. We both try, and I don't think he tilts. I don't really think I tilt. I think I stick to what I'm doing, but it takes an emotional toll, going through stretches where you just like are wondering whether or not shit's going on, like, what the hell's this?
I'm as close to an even kill robot as I think you're going to find when it comes to emotions. And I said after the aces versus kings hand that if I plan to continue through the match that particular day, I would have texted Doug and said, I need 30. I would have taken a cold shower. I would have taken a walk. I might have tried to take a nap, something to like reset the desire to give into the thought that the world's conspiring against me. Because like that, you can't script that shit. When it happened, it was just like one of those things where it's like, man, if it's not bad enough to be the betting dog, but to like then have to overcome this type of stuff, it's really, really challenging as a human to like find your path forward here.
Yeah, that session was probably the proudest I've been of myself, to be able to just take a minute or whatever. Then that happened, and like I played for another 3-4 hours, and I sort of I cut into the deficit. But the deficit is obviously really small. Like, I mean, the deficit was actually quite big after those hands. Like, there's not much I can do about it. I'm going to always play aces against kings, and I'm always going to play ace queen on queen, 6, right?
Yeah.
So, just brain dead coolers. But I really was very proud of how I was able to just push through and play after that, because I don't know that, I agree with you. It probably makes sense, like when those types of things happen, to just press the eject button. But I felt really good. Like I felt like I was in a good mental space, and I felt like I was playing well, and I felt like things were going well. They were not going well, that's for sure. But I'm like, let's do this, man. Let's just go. I'm gonna have to deal with adversity, and I'm hoping that the second half of the match that he has to deal with some of the adversity that I've certainly had to deal with so far, which is maybe losing one pot where, he has jacks and I have tens. Like
Sure.
maybe, I don't know, all in pre.
So you've added layers to your game. Talk to me a little bit about the difficult. Like, where were some difficult times that you had? Like, okay, you've added layers to the game. Clearly, I've been impressed. I think a lot of people have been impressed. But what were some of the hurdles in terms of adding those things?
Well, I'm gonna the adding part. I think first and foremost, when I started from nothing, right, and it's like just do this. I'm like, well, this sucks. This isn't enough to win. Like I was explaining before, I'm like, I can't win like this. This is stupid. And you're like, relax. It's just like the Miyagi thing, right? Like, Daniel-san, he went to Mr. Miyagi to learn how to fight karate, and they freaking tell him to wax freaking cars. They tell him to paint the fence. They tell him to freaking sand the floor. And he's like, what's this stupid shit, right? So that's what I was doing. Wax off, wax on, all this stuff. I'm like, this sucks. I can't win. Then we put it all together, and they start. I'm like, wait a minute. Wow, through osmosis, that stuff sunk in now. So there's certain things that I'm what we call it stage 4ing, where I don't have to think about it. Just I got it. I know what to do here. And the more you can do that, once you've built that foundation, you can expand. But the hardest part was probably struggling. Like I said, I was playing 10 cent, 20 cent. I couldn't beat nobody. I'm not talking like lose some of the sessions. I lost every time. These guys, I was the biggest fish. They were so happy I came in losing my $50 every time. It was crazy, But the other part that I guess, was something that I needed to work through is obviously, and I knew this was coming, but, dealing with some of the lines that Doug takes sometimes, you have to have some patience and discipline in some spots because, sometimes you have a very good hand, right? And your opponent bets 4 times the size of the pot.
Right.
Okay. So you have a very good hand and you would certainly call pot. You'd certainly call 3/4, but like, you can't theoretically just go, fuck it, man, I'm not folding this hand. You know what I mean? You have to learn and study, what the line is between overcalling, undercalling. Make sure you're calling with the correct range of hands. And that's where it gets difficult. And I explained this to my wife, I think the other day, where I'm like, okay, so in this spot, you would call with pair of 4s with an ace kicker, but you would fold a pair of kings with a queen kicker. And she's like, that doesn't make any sense, right? Pair of kings is way better. Like, kings is way better than a 4. Why would you call with a 4 and fold a king? And that's a very difficult concept for people to grasp. And obviously you guys understand it's related to blockers, right?
Right.
Where if you have a bluff catcher where you only win if your opponent's bluffing, sometimes a much worse hand is actually a better hand to call with than a very, very good hand. So for example, I'll use one. Let's say it comes king 10-8, 10-4, right? Now on that river, if your opponent bets big, really big, you'd rather have like ace 4 than king queen.
Right.
Which is crazy to think, because like the queen potentially blocks, the queen jack, queen 9 bluffs or whatever like that. So it's really just interesting when you get there, but it's also very difficult to figure out, like, all right, did I just overfold? Did I just overcall? Like, and then you look at it later in the evening and you take a look and you hope that the more you study it, the better you get at making sure that you're calling it a clip. Because I don't want to play the game of trying to exploit by thinking, oh, I think he's under bluffing here. I think he's over bluffing here. I'm not going to do that, right? I'm assuming that he's studied, that he's doing, a very balanced job of having enough bluffs in all of these spots. So I'm just going to focus on my end and be like, all right, I'm going to try to make, come up with a GTO response for this. And of course, I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm trying to play as close to the line as possible.
That's not the Daniel people are used to, right? The Daniel people are used to are the famous YouTube clips where like you're calling people's like hand out, like, oh, he has aces, and then like he actually does have aces, and then all these like super like, how did he know kind of things. You were famous for those kind of phrases, right?
But you paid anyway.
Yeah, well, poker's evolved, right? It's no longer like, I think you got king 9. You're like, he's got king 9. Well, the truth is, back then, it was so easy to discern what a range would look like. And it wasn't vast. It wasn't like a whole grid of hands that the person could have. It's either like they either got this, or this. That's it, based on, the simplicity of the game trees that people were, executing back then. So in order to compete against really, really good players, you have to sort of, to a certain, for the most part, you have to turn your exploitive mind off for the most part. And I want to make sure I say this properly, but if I was playing against a bad player and I want to make the most money, and Doug is not a bad player, he's very, very good. If I wanted to make the most money against a bad player, I'm going to look at the biggest mistakes they make and exploit the shit out of them. Right? Not by playing GTO. So GTO is literally just a barometer and a line to learn, like, all right, what is the baseline? Okay. Right. And then if you play against regular human beings, you're like, all right, well, this is the baseline, but this guy, he never bluffs. So I don't have to call with all my bluff catchers. I can gut them. I can, gut all of them if I want, whatever the case may be. But the key is understanding and learning the fundamentals of what an actual, GTO response would be. So the value is in there. And then again, at the highest levels, the equilibrium between great players is always going to divert back to to pretty close to a GTO match. There may be a period where, say, if I was playing Berkey and all of a sudden, Berkey's overcalling like crazy. We notice that, we pick it up, all right, so we start under bluffing, and then Berkey figures it out. And he's like, oh shit, I'm not calling you anymore. You stopped under bluffing. So then I got to go back, and it's a back and forth seesaw match that often ends up back to, roughly a GTO baseline.
I really, I was going to say something with regards to like when K-Rab was doing commentary with us, just that he kind of mentioned that at the end of the day, even though you're all operating off the same baseline, it does end up mattering who notices the exploits. But I think we've beaten that horse to death, and I think it's very clear like where we stand on that as well. I really appreciate you doing this. I really appreciate you taking on this match, even though I said I don't love the fact that Doug is back in the limelight. I think that this is huge for poker. I think whether you want it or not, you are the biggest ambassador to poker and you're the face. So these things go a really long way. I'm speaking for us here, but also the community, where I think that hopefully people see this for what it is, and that this is two high-level professionals who are willing to put the work in and put their money where their mouths are. I hope that there's a lot more of this to come. And as somebody who bet on your side, I hope that you crawl out of this. What are we at? A 20 buy-in downswing right now?
20.
Yeah.
Well, the downswing's bigger because I was ahead, but yeah, it's 20.
Well, right now we're minus 20, so I'd love to see you bring this back to zero. I guess just from my standpoint, thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you taking the interview and taking time with us today.
Always, man. You guys are fun to listen to here and there. On when I got some free time in the gym, I turn you guys on and listen in.
Good to hear, man.
I'm so honored that you do that.
Or was I bluffing?
Sure.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, best of luck moving forward, man.
Take care, guys.
That's it. That was great.
I had one more question. You cut me off.
Shoot your shot, man.
I'll just let it out in the ether. The only criticism I had was that, and I've mentioned this to you before, was that if I was Daniel, I would just shut it off at 2 hours, right? Because I think every hour he has with his team is better than every hour he has with his team is better than him playing.
You're just saying like exaggerating the match as long as possible gives him more time to prep.
Right, because I think every hour he has with his team is more useful than every hour that Doug has with his team.
Yeah, we've talked about this a lot on the broadcast, where for Doug there's a little bit of I guess like the prep hours aren't worth that much.
Right.
He's so close to operating at whatever his peak strategy is. Sure, he's going to gain something by being in the lab, but it's not going to be nearly as much as Daniel. Daniel's growing literally match by match, session by session, whatever the case may be. So basically what you're saying is that if he restricts the play time to a shortened period, then that increases the amount of study time he has, which is going to have a compounding effect on his strategy moving forward.
Yeah.
Where for Doug, he has like kind of diminishing returns. If he has 20 hours or 40 hours in between matches, he can't do that much. Right.
Sure.
He's not going to do that much to increase his EV of the next match, but Daniel might be able to.
Yeah. There's probably some factors that I'm not, accounting for that. Maybe he's just like, maybe he's playing really well that day, and they think that, you know, that's the time to press.
Or they could have stipulations too, where they have to get an X amount of hours before date Y.
Right. There could be, there could be a lot of things there for sure. But I think there was a couple things that I'm a little bit excited about, man. We might see 100,000 hands. We might see Daniel versus Gary. We might see Daniel versus fucking Limitless. We might see Daniel versus Matt Berkey. Like, yo, this shit is crazy. Like, Daniel's like, let's go. I want all the smoke. Like, you know?
I mean, yeah, I think that, like, the one thing
Daniel's fucking back, bro.
That
Kid
part I
poker.
agree with. I hope
fucking
that,
man poker now.
I hope to see him out there more. Like, he didn't really give an exact answer, but I would like to see post this match a lot more of Daniel in whatever the poker sphere is. We don't know because of COVID, right? So we don't know what that's going to be. Maybe it's high stakes poker. Maybe it's back on the tour. We don't really know. Maybe we don't go live again until the World Series. But I do think that is one thing that he touched on that I think is pretty accurate. Is this is kind of a byproduct of COVID. So if by say this match ends in early February, and suddenly we have a vaccine in like March, I don't think he's going to be spending the spring necessarily battling Garrett.
Right.
I mean, the World Series is going to be coming up. Like, at the end of the day, that's always going to be his number one focal point. He's going to want to win Player of the Year. He's going to want to win multiple bracelets. He's going to have a ton of money and a ton of action on whatever next summer's series of events are. And I think we're all relatively confident that by the time next June rolls around, we're going to have some semblance of a World Series of poker again.
I don't know, man. Maybe he could just be it. He could just be it again. Like Ivy cares about the series, but he's also like
Ivy
also
doesn't care
ready.
about the series.
He has all the bracelets,
Bro, Ivy can't care about the series. They fucking garnished his wages. Like he shows up to a tournament and they're like, yeah, we'll take that.
Ivy got it in Bitcoin, man. He don't care.
Yoink.
Ivy's like, pay me in Bitcoin. Let's go.
Rio's not going to pay you in Bitcoin.
I know. It sucks. I mean,
They write you a tax form, and the guy's sitting there ready to tap him on the shoulder and be like, excuse me, sir. I don't know if you know this, but you lost a lawsuit, and we're going to take that.
I know. It seems like things were settled, though. I mean, maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, actually, maybe I'm wrong on that. I thought I did hear something about there being a reversal.
Yeah,
like he won an appeal, maybe.
I think it's just like over. Like they're good. Like, I'm excited for Daniel, though. I don't know, man. I felt good about this interview. Like, I felt like he's ready.
I do feel a little bit more encouraged than I have been just sitting there watching him like grind out 1,000 hands at a time.
It's hard, man. Like he really is taking on like one of the biggest tasks of his career. Like, this might be the hardest thing he's ever done.
Yeah,
like, it really is. Like, he's played tournaments. He's been amazing at tournaments his entire career. This is not. I think there might be one other time that was really hard, and is like when he played heads up versus Isildur. Like, that was tough, but it was a short sample. They only agreed to like 2,500 hands or something like that.
Yeah.
It was a short sample, and then it was split between two. Isildur won the first one, and then Daniel won the second one. At the end of the day, Isildur won a little bit more than what Daniel won. But this is harder. This is 25,000 hands. Way different situation. Also, things have evolved where like Isildur today maybe loses to Doug Polk. Things like that.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know too much about what's going on in Isildur's world. I would imagine he would want to do an 8-game type of matchup if he were ever going to enter these streets. The little bit that I know about him is just that he's remarkably good at all the games, more so than an expert at one game. So I guess, like, as an aside, that would seemingly make a lot more sense than anything else. But yeah, I mean, Daniel seems like he's in good spirits for a man who's down $1 million. So God bless him for that. I do hope that he's right, that the all-in EV turns around. And I do think it's worth mentioning. We didn't really bring it up during the interview, but Doug did say that if the whole cards were completely reversed, he thinks he would be down. He thinks he would be down less, but he does think that, like, he acknowledges that luck has been on his side. He acknowledges that, like, he would be losing in Daniel's spot if all things were just completely inversed.
One of the things that I think is interesting too is the public perception, right? I think people have been pretty critical of Daniel because of results, and people that aren't necessarily experts at poker in general, like just like high stakes regs that have been on huge downswings, like you've been on huge downswings, things like that. I think they're overly critical, like, oh, Daniel's getting his head beat in and things like that. It's like, bro, like, you don't see the cards.
Same thing about Phil, though. when he was getting mopped by Vinny Vidi.
Right. And that was another situation where like he was running pretty freaking bad. Like I was watching those and I'm like, Jesus Christ, like not flush versus not flush, boat under boat. Like it's just like, okay, bro, like this sucks, you know?
Yeah.
But he came back over $1 million. It was in euros.
Yeah, true.
That little exchange rate is nice, you know? But it's kind of sucks, right? Like that match was super famous. This one dwarfs all matches. Like I think everyone tuned in for the last match of Gelfond. I think everyone's tuning in for this one, and I think
it's getting more coverage, right? Like you didn't have Ingram covering Gelfond. That's
right.
You know, that's 5,000 concurrent viewers a day, somewhere in the neighborhood of like probably 50,000 per video. And same thing, you didn't have GG and Polk's channel covering Gelfond. So like it was literally only the Run It Once channel, and it's just nowhere near as big as these other entities. So it'd be like, you know, it's more akin to like what the numbers were doing, which pale by comparison. So yeah, I mean, I think like the Gelfond match was just a marketing issue and a lack thereof. Whereas with Negreanu and Polk, they have machines behind them, and they're really, you know, not to use this pun too much, but like they're really backing the truck up on the marketing for this.
Those phrases are banned on this channel, bro.
But like, you know, it's true. Like, you know, on any given day when this match is popping off, we're talking about like a random Tuesday on hand number 9,255. There's like 20,000 concurrent viewers watching, maybe more.
So how would you handle this then? Like, because there are some big matches coming up, like MJ versus Limitless. It's freaking huge, like massive stakes, right? Then you have potential a Garrett challenge coming up, which he's saying I'll play bigger.
Yeah.
Right. So these are two major matches that one is definitely happening, and the other one, if it happens, will also be big. But the stakes are stakes that we've probably never seen, right? Like the Limitless versus MJ, you're looking at like, who knows, 4,000, 8,000, something ridiculous.
No, they're playing 501K.
No, they're not.
That's what they had initially talked about. They were going to play live 501K.
Okay, I'm not sure how big.
But yeah, I mean, like the thing with the MJ Limitless match, we're not going to know anything about it. It's just going to happen live.
Right.
So there isn't going to be any coverage. It might be, you know, we might get like some sort of reporting,
right?
Be it, you know, Poker News or whatever. But we're only going to get a tiny sliver of a glimpse into that match. Maybe
you think it'll be something like when Todd Brunson played Andy, right? Where it was just like in Bobby's room, no one knows what's happening, but like it's
tough to say because like when that happened, like the internet wasn't really a thing. So like, you know, if you read, I mean, I assume you're talking about like more so in the corporation days, or are you talking about more recently?
Well, I'm just saying recently, like, you know,
recently it's like nobody even knows about it. But like if you're talking about back in the corporation when it was the Professor, the Banker, and the Suicide King, when that book was written, or the time frame in which it was written, you know, there are moments in that book where they said like the local poker economy in Vegas just shut down because everybody had a piece of that. Like everybody was all in on the corporation side, so there wasn't a game to be had in town. And yeah, it was like pre-internet mostly, or pre-social media at least. So the updates were just like the rumor mill, right? Like people would just show up to the card room to like sweat from afar and just try to be like lit in the loop.
Okay, so the information I just got is that the MJ vs Limitless is 1K, 2K on PokerGo, potentially 2K, 4K on PokerGo. So that's definitely the biggest stakes we've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure.
You know,
for sure.
How do you think they should handle that in terms of promotion? Because
it depends on how many hands they get, right? Like I don't imagine that. I mean, maybe they are. Maybe they're playing the entire match on PokerGo, where it's just every single day we can tune in, we can watch nosebleeds. But I imagine neither player really wants that.
Yeah, I'm sure that I doubt both players would want that. But let's just throw it out there that let's say they play 1,000, right? 1,000 hands, enough where people are going to tune in, they're going to watch. Those are huge.
It's a lot. That's 20 sessions of live under the lights.
Well, like 1,000, like maybe 5. Right, because remember Daniel, he played like 200 hands.
No, well, yeah, but that's like a full day.
All right, so let's say it's 5.
Okay, yeah,
between 5 and 10.
Sure.
Definitely the biggest stakes that we've seen live. Period. Right. How would they promote that? Because you know neither are massive names to the general public.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But these are the biggest stakes. These are the two heads. One probably considered like a live a live master and another one, an online master, colliding, right, for the biggest stakes ever. How would you handle that marketing as a businessman? That
you have to build the machine, right? It has to start now, not like the time that the match occurs, not even a month before the match occurs. Like, I don't know when they plan on playing, but you really have to start building out the machine. Like, we need to get to know who these players are. Like, sort of like what they did in the NHL for the Winter Classic. They would just follow the teams leading up to the Winter Classic, right? And they would do 24/7. They do it for boxing as well. So the whole purpose of that is to create sides. It's to create a hero and a villain. It's to create some sort of drama that otherwise doesn't exist in a sporting event. And like, we know who these guys are because we're in the know, and we're in a small niche circle that brushes elbows. But in a general sense, to the population, to your local guy who plays at the VFW, these names mean nothing.
Right.
And the stakes don't mean anything to them either.
Really?
They're shut out. They're shut out. Like, the guy who plays a $40 tournament at the VFW who subscribes to PokerGo does not give a fuck about people playing for houses, especially if they're people he doesn't know. He gives a fuck if Ivey's playing for houses because he adores Ivey and he wants to see Ivey win a house, and he doesn't care who Ivey's playing against. But if you just get two guys, whether they are rich Silicon Valley types or two elite professionals that he doesn't know, and they're playing for blinds that replicate his monthly salary, he's not happy. He's angry. He doesn't want to watch that. He wants to turn it off because, like, they are just common folk to him who get to be in this privileged position that he's not able to relate to. So I do think that there's a lot of marketing and a big machine that needs to be built out in order to promote this and have it succeed. Now, it doesn't have to succeed. It could also just be something that lives on the platform, and the hardcores watch it and nobody else does, and that is what it is. But that seems like an opportunity lost.
So you think it's similar to creating these trailers, similar to what PokerGo did for High Stakes Poker, but in a different facet, right? It'll be like creating the trailer for Limitless, creating the trailer for MJ, in terms of like, who are these people? Why do you care? Who should you root for? If you're Spanish out there, you're rooting for my man MJ Gonzalez. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you out there, you're European, you're rooting for my man Limitless. Like, you out there, you picking sides. I don't know what side I'm going to pick. I mean, maybe I look a little Spanish, so maybe I'm rooting for my man MJ. I'm not sure. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think it goes well beyond the trailer.
I mean, I'm not trying to create race relations here or anything.
No,
like that, but,
you would never do that.
Yeah, I would never create like racial tension. That's crazy. But I'm just saying, people relate to who they relate to.
Yeah, I think it goes way beyond trailers. Like, people need to know who these guys are and why they are at the levels that they're at, and why that's important to give a shit about, basically. Right. And that's hard. That's a huge, huge undertaking that maybe PokerGo isn't really interested in taking up, because it's easy for them to just plug and play. Right. We have a studio. Show up. We'll put it on. Boom. Yeah. Done. No money off, or it's just the cost of
the operating that
turning on the lights that day. Yeah. But actually building the machine for the way that again, I relate to boxing because this happens all the time. We forever see contenders that are no names and champions that don't necessarily drive the pay-per-view needle yet, right? MMA is another good example. Dana White is a master at this, just creating names and bouts that people ultimately give a shit about. And it all comes from nothing that happens in the ring, right? It all comes from things like The Ultimate Fighter. It comes from these backstories, UFC 24/7 or whatever the
press conferences where some people are fucking throwing chairs. Right. Maybe MJ got to throw a little chair out there. You just throw a chair at my man's bus. Well,
I mean, it doesn't need to get that extreme, but it does need to be consistent, right? It's every single day. This needs to be a topic of conversation, and we're just not good at that in this community at all. We just are very, very poor at highlighting.
I mean, Doug is good at it.
Doug is very good at it, but only in self-interested ways.
Correct.
I don't think he's really ever propped up very much else, outside of actually kind of tearing down D-Negs, which led to this challenge ultimately.
Yeah.
But yeah, in a general sense, we're not very good at this, and it's why these matches just kind of go by the wayside. I mean, like you said, or like Daniel said, actually, there's high stakes heads up taking place on the internet all the time,
right,
between killers.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit. I don't even give a shit. And I'm a hardcore. It's like, I don't care one bit what Linus is doing versus these other Europeans that are all fucking sickos. I see some hands. I see some 5 highs finding a way to like shove river for 10% pot and getting called by like, you know, the 20th nut flush or whatever. But like outside of, it takes finding equilibrium to do a video on the hand for me to care, right? So like there are these funnels that will feed the greater population, right? Like even finding equilibrium, like that's niche. That will still address that'll suck the hardcores in, right? Pads, he'll suck the hardcores in and the ancillary circle around that. But like it takes Poker Go.
So maybe it does take Poker Go giving the green light for these channels to do it, right?
Oh, but it's so much bigger, right? It has to start with Poker Go, where they're like, we're going to capture everybody. And then on top of that, we're going to splinter off into these 20 other influencers who can now bring in the hardcores and solidify.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I think at least Poker Go has to give the green light for the influencers to say, okay, let us use your footage. Let Finding Equilibrium
it's too
break
late,
it down.
But it's too late at that point. Once the match has started,
right,
it's too late, right? Like you're not going to have people retroactively tuning in.
Yeah, that's true.
So
yeah,
that's
it,
I mean,
man. We got to make the phone call. We got to be like, yo, Brent, listen, what's the plan?
Right.
Like, come sit down here, tell us the plan,
it's
so that people care.
Man.
You know what I'm saying?
It's expensive. Marketing is the most costly aspect of doing business. And, you know, for these guys, like, they just want to play cards.
Yeah. Just want to play cards, man. Linus just wants to play, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he doesn't give a shit nobody's watching. Nor should he. He's winning
like,
money.
Just deal the cards, man.
Yeah.
You know? I want to see people play deep stack. You know? None of this 100 big blind bullshit anymore. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 250.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. Garrett versus someone else. Deep stack, no limit.
I like
live
Garrett.
is even better.
I like Garrett in that scenario.
But it's like, I want to see some deep stack. 100 big blind. Yeah, you guys all run your fucking solver. Like, you know all the fucking answers. like let's play some deep stack poker where you need real fucking shit and live. None of this shit like you have your spreadsheet up, your fucking randomizer on the side. No, fuck that. Live, it's deep stacks. Let's go.
It's definitely two different aspects of the game. And I think to your point, like the common viewer can relate a lot closer to live.
Yeah.
Like they'll be able to.
I mean, they can't relate to Garrett, like fucking 6'3", huge arms. They're not relating to that shit. But like, you know.
No, but they can relate to him getting a little spicy with the 7-5 suited from the under the gun one. You know.
Yeah, I like Garrett.
They can mix with that. They can understand that he straddled with 10-6 suited and he's not giving it up no matter how many bets went in prior.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they understand. You got to defend your soldiers.
I like that. Yeah, 250 big blinds live. I might set it up right here, man. I might just set it up right here. You know, if Garrett wants to play Daniel, I swear to God, I'll fucking open this fucking whole thing up. Like, you guys will get 17 different camera angles if that shit happens.
Right. My man Andre, he's in the booth. He's ready to run the whole thing.
Yeah, like I don't care. Let's go. 17 different camera angles. You'll have fucking live interview. I'll fucking bring in Maria Ho to do the live interview. I don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I hear you, man. I hear you. No, it should be interesting. There's definitely a lot on the docket for the poker community. We'll see how everything shakes out.
All right. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this fascinating episode. It was one of my favorite episodes. If you're listening on Twitch, if you're everywhere, fucking everywhere, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Spotify, Apple. What is Apple Podcast?
iTunes.
iTunes is dead. That's just discontinued.
I don't have Apple, man. I don't know.
Apple's the shit, bro. How do you not have Apple? That's crazy. But that's right.
I'm to Google.
No, that's right. We don't have Apple here. So if Google's listening to this and they hit me up this morning, they're like, listen, I don't know. We can't. I know. Bitcoin's up, but we could only pay in shares. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like shares, like, okay, like, sure. You know, I had to play the part, you know?
Yeah,
like, sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know? They're like, we need the logo here. We need to take this logo off. And I was like, you guys are asking for a lot. How many shares are it?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, we'll talk tomorrow. So I'll wait. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I do appreciate all the people watching, all the people, you know, Elipsy's out there watching. He's out there in the mix. He's watching. Daniel was watching. I'm sure he watched a little bit of this. Like, he knows that I'm honored for him to be here. He's an honorary guest.
That's right.
That's what I was trying to say.
I hear you, man.
He was trying to throw a little shot at me. It's not going to work. Haircut's in. I'm climbing mountains. It's all over. I'm glad you all enjoyed the show. Peace.